Okay. And so I think we can go ahead and get started. So first off, we welcome to the Robinson Pond Water Quality Protection Plan Kickoff meeting. We can start with introductions. I'm Emma Rarick. I'm a regional planner here at NRPC.
I'm Bill Atcherry from VHB, Water Resource Scientist. I'll be the project manager.
Garrison Beck, also from VHB.
Glenn Bowles, live in Robinson Pond.
Jay Bowles, Robinson Pond.
Do you guys want us to do it now?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Elvis Dima, town engineer in Hudson. We also got Don that his mic is not working. So Don Kirkland, also civil engineer in Hudson as well, will be attending this meeting.
Dave Moran, selectman with the town of Hudson.
Hello, Sarah Siskavich here, GIS manager at NRPC.
And Robin Green Slade, live on the pond.
Hi, I'm Jeff Marcoux from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so. So.
Talk about our roles here. So we also, in addition to VHB, we do have Don Kretschmer from DK Water Resource Consulting, who's on our project. He couldn't make it here today, but he is also going to assist as sort of a technical advisor. He was one of the original authors of the TMDL study that was done in 2011. So he actually did the modeling of that TMDL. So, you know, he'll be a great help in this study as we look at loading, update our loading estimates. And he has the model, you know, that can look at the lake response of various loading. So we have him as well. Garrison Beck will be probably task managing most of the field efforts and the data interpretation. So mostly in our study, we have allocated time to do some field investigations, at least, you know, one day in the field, and we haven't finalized exactly the level of efforts and things, but certainly want to do I don't know, a walk around, a float around, maybe both, around the pond, looking for, get a feel for the lay of the land, look for some obvious things, land use conditions around the lake and in the watershed. We will be developing pollutant loading estimates for the various drainage areas going into the lake, using latest pollutant load estimates that are developed that EPA has provided, and we will be coming up with a total phosphorus load for the lake, and then with the assistance with Don, we'll be able to kind of look at the lake response to that in terms of how that might affect in-lake concentrations and chlorophyll A concentrations. We will certainly be looking to gather all existing information that we can, of data that Friends of Lake Robinson Pond have data, and the VLAP data. I think UNH Lay Lakes Monitoring may have done some data collection too, but I haven't confirmed that. We do have there was a diagnostic feasibility study. It was old, back in 1994. Gives us a little more history, I guess, of the baseline. So that'll be kind of our first time, so data gathering, get a summary of the existing conditions, progressing into the pollutant loading estimates, field investigation. We anticipate all that sort of happening this summer into this fall, having load estimates by this fall. I don't know, getting ahead of myself about schedule, but that probably would be a good time to probably meet again late this fall. All of this sort of wraps up into a detailed technical memo that will be provided to Planning Commission to be included into the water quality plan, and including recommendations for mitigation measures, depending on what we see as potential sources. So that's kind of a general overview of our approach. Anything I left out of it?
Sounds
Harris, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about our pollutant loading approach.
Yeah, sure. So basically using, as Bill said, using available estimates and calculations that EPA has developed, we'll be looking at specific data to this watershed, using land cover data, land use data, impervious cover data, and we'll be incorporating all of that into our pollutant load estimates. We'll be delineating, specific drainages around the watershed so we can have a better sense of what is going where, and then that'll help us determine with our pollutant load estimates, where may be more efficient places to implement certain practices based on those watershed areas and the associated load estimates. So that and that will all be aided by some of the field investigations too. So this all really works together. Those load estimates will be able to sort of field truth those, and also working with all the data we can get from the Planning Commission and VLAP and the town, that'll all aid in those load estimates and help us determine what the best case action may be and incorporate all of that into our recommendations and memo.
One thing in parallel, because we're working with the town with Elvis on the MS4 permit, we do plan to do some outfall sampling this spring as well for the MS4 permit purposes, but that will also help get perhaps data regarding stormwater.
Yeah.
PCP and the phosphorus control plan, yes, we are, for the purposes of the MS4 permit, developing a phosphorus control plan, which is in parallel with this quality protection plan. As far as data needs, and now, kind of mentioned, collected the VLAP data. And I know the annual reports are available, which is great. We probably want to talk to you guys too, a little bit, more detail, picking your brains about what you've seen. Jeff, I was wondering if do you know if Sarah has a compilation of the annual reports, and an Excel spreadsheet? Do you know if that's available? We can ask her too. Don't know, but
Yeah, so any data that has been collected by DES or by through a DES program, so VLAP's a prime example there, is available from DES through our environmental monitoring database.
oh yes, yep.
You should be able to just grab that through, by running a query and getting it downloaded or a report out in an Excel format. But if you have any problems running that at all, please let me know. Not that I can do much to help you, but I can definitely get you in touch with the folks at DES who can, and make sure we get that, whatever data we have can be reported out to you.
Yep. That's good. I forgot about the EMD. So timing, we're starting today. We're watching it.
Yeah. Do you want me to pull up the timeline for people?
Sure.
Okay, can you all see that timeline? Yep, okay.
So the first step
I can see it.
is developing this site-specific project plan. It's the first step, which provides details about the data that we're going to use for our analysis, and the approach, details on the pollutant loading estimates, and the whole process and expected outcomes. Right. So that's the first step that we have targeted. Beginning of May, mid-May, as having that completed. So that goes through. The draft will come through for review for everyone to review and finalizing in mid-May. Once we have that done, then we can start, and everybody's agreement with the process and approach. We can start with the, field investigations, pollutant loading analysis, field investigations being in task 10, and then pollutant loading being in task 12. We kind of had that schedule, I put in that kind of schedule for October, but we'd probably start sooner than that. I'd say by August, we'd probably starting on that sooner, because it really helps us to sort of focus our field efforts too. I don't know, maybe actually we'd be starting, I don't know why we had said October, November now that I look at this. I think we probably would get started earlier, maybe even as early June or July, so that we can focus our field effort and ground truth, whatever questions we might come up with pollutant loading analysis.
Yeah.
And then our next coordination is
November, we have on there.
November. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's October, October, November,
Okay, somewhere around there.
somewhere around there. And then once we have pollutant loading and developed, data collected, field data collected, we start to fill out that BMP matrix, what the potential BMPs could be in task 13. Provide a draft, float around for review, tighten that up, revise it, and then start developing cost estimates, who's responsible, how it would be implemented, and kind of filling out more of a implementation plan of the types of things we'd be recommending and who would be responsible, and sort of the recommended timeline and cost estimates, which really rolls up under the task 15, I think. And then really kind of gets all documented through a technical memo with the BMP matrix. We have kind of scheduled to finish this out by June of next year. Which is earlier than, I mean, you have to the end of 23, right? So-
Yeah, the grant is through the end of 23.
But we figured it gives us enough time, you know, and if there are some lingering things, it gives us a little more time in the summer of next year. There is,
Yeah.
but I think we would be targeting to be done June of 23.
Okay. Yeah, because I think when you give us the technical report, we'll be creating a bigger document around it, I think, so that'll give us some time.
Right.
To do that.
I think also we scheduled that way too, because this parallels, this is gonna also feed to this phosphorus control plan, that's the MS4 permit, which is actually due of June 23 next year as well. So that's the overall process. So we have scheduled 3 meetings.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what, yep, so this meeting, mid-project to, you know, see where things are, and then one at the end to see where we ended up.
Yep. So the overall deliverable will be a detailed memo and the BMP matrix, which not only lists the recommended measures and solutions, but, you know, whose responsibility does that fall under, whose implementation and cost estimates and a general timeline. Is it something that would be done in, you know, a year? Or does it take 3 to 5 years? Or, you know, an ongoing process, or is it a 10-year timeframe? It does help that, you know, we are doing this MS4 permit at the same time, and we have this phosphorus control plan to also prepare, which has similar requirements. It is more focused on stormwater drainage more than a holistic thing of view, which would be part of this water quality protection plan, but it does look at stormwater drainage and the town's responsibility, or what's potentially could be done with stormwater drainage. That plan by permit allows 15 years to implement. So it's the plan itself, but it allows time to implement that measures, whatever comes out. Any questions on that? You know, I hope, I mean, we'll be looking beyond sort of the typical structural measures, you know. We're just with Elvis and Don earlier about doing a training, and, you know, geese, the issue of geese came up. So was it geese on the beach? Beavers.
Dave, that's related to that complaint or those Facebook comments out there about the foam. That's what he's relating to right now. That's kind of what we're talking about. There was some concerns out there about that. So that's what Bill is talking about. We had a little bit of that last week, I think. So, or was it this week, Dave? I forget. Was it this week or last week?
This week.
This week, okay. And was it on an isolated area or was it throughout the pond? I forget.
They were fishing at the beach. And when
Okay.
it was a windy day, we had waves on the pond and it was coming in with
Gotcha.
foam.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that today, so. What I got out of the bill too is that it could have been a natural, like, I guess, like bacteria. What would you say that, like organics that cause it too as well, Bill?
Yeah, it can be natural. There are
Right.
organics that build up in the water column that can cause that sort of foam production. Jeff, you probably heard a lot about too.
Actually, I actually didn't hear that much about it, and I'm actually having a little bit of an issue right now. I'm having, folks are cutting out on me. I'm only catching like half of what you're saying, but yeah, on that foam, the foam issue is, you know, one that pops up every once in a while, and yeah, pretty frequently, it's a naturally occurring thing.
I don't know if we need to talk about the administrative part of it, but sort of we, you know, if it goes through you.
Oh, yeah, yep,
You will be submitting invoices to the
Yep.
state.
Yep.
For reimbursement.
yeah, no, we should be exactly that.
So we talked earlier, you sample once a month, May to September. And you're sampling tributaries, sampling in the pond. You're also doing temperature and dissolved oxygen profiles or not? No.
No, we don't do those unless the biologist, every other year we get a biologist visit. This is our year to have a biologist come to one of our sampling events. And at that time, they do take the dissolved oxygen and temperature measurements, but we do not do that on a monthly basis for the deep water.
And has that been the case for a while, that only when this biologist came?
I think so, yeah. Yeah,
Interesting.
That's every other year?
right.
Okay.
So we did have the notice from Sarah about scheduling, you know, letting her know when we were gonna be doing our sampling dates and scheduling. She sent out the list of the lakes that we're gonna get biologist visits this year. We're gonna get it.
I mean, one of the things we might, it'd be nice, maybe we visit, say, that you're sampling. And kind of
With
follow
her
up.
or just normally.
Normally, it doesn't have to be with, I mean, it could be with, but any of the events, we could come out and we would have Dawn as well as, you know, certified lake manager. We could also do temperature field profiles at that time.
You can see the, where the locations are of the sampling spots.
So yeah, that's probably a good idea that we try to do that. Dawn has photos from 2009 or 11, whenever they did the TMDL during that process. So we can compare some sites, you know, how things have changed. Yeah, we know the beach has got some issues with erosion. Yeah, to the extent that that affects the lake, you know, we'll take a closer look at that. But you know, anything that you know of that requires a little closer look, you know, let us know.
Some of our sampling dates too, we have to be a little bit careful to describe what's happening on that day, because if there's been a big rain event or something, or a drought or whatever, you know, sometimes we can't get samples because there's been a drought. Sometimes, you know, there's a lot flushed out because there's been a rain event. So it's, we try and describe what the conditions are on the day we sample, one day the air temperature and whether the lake is is windy and all that. And there's a lot of variables every day. Certain day you're signed up to do your sample.
So you set those dates.
Yeah, we try and have them the same, like the third Tuesday or something, or whatever, for every month, so that, you know, our samplers can schedule their life around that. And we do it early in the morning. So and then we have to have samples up there within a certain time period to the lab. And we actually also take the samples from Platonic Pond. They do it Monday night on their pond. That's it. And we take the samples up with ours from their pond. That's equivalent to this study. But all the other things.
Yeah, we're usually off the lake by like 9 o'clock. And I'm on my way up to contribute with the samples. That's basically what we do.
Sounds good. It's a good time to be out there.
Would you rather do that at one of the first ones in May or June, or wait too long to?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea.
Okay.
Did we get the schedule yet?
No, I just got the email last week from Sarah, you know, telling us all the rules for this year.
One of the other things we want to try to is update the inventory of homes that are on septic systems. We might need a little help from you, Elvis, on that too. You've got information on that.
Yeah, we have a sewer district in town, and we kind of know how it extends and what doesn't. And unfortunately, I don't know why, this was before my time, but decisions were made that portions of like either Atonic or Robinson would be out of it. I don't know why, don't ask me. But we have that information. We're also looking at it internally too. As we create more capacity for the sewer here, what we see to Nashville, that one of the ways to improve water quality over there is to maybe present areas where these houses, neighborhoods around the ponds or watersheds get sewer instead of being on septic. That appears to be like the main thing that could make it a significant difference. So that's something we've been talking about. And I actually even talked about today too as well during that 9:30 meeting, Bill. So yeah, we can provide it for you, not a problem.
Do you get CC'd on any septic system upgrade approvals?
Yes, we have rules in place that we are involved with the approval and also with the inspection of the septic systems as well. We do the test pits, and we also witness the bed bottom. If the bed bottom inspection is not done by the town, state doesn't move in to do their portion. So we have a mechanism for that, yes. We also get the approvals, and the approvals get uploaded to every single folder here that has to do, so every property has a folder, and every folder has information about if it's a septic or if it's a town sewer. So we have all that information, yes.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, we do get a couple things right once in a while, you know. We seem to know just enough, you know, to make sure that we're just over the threshold. Now we had that system in place before I got here, and we got pretty robust right now. But yeah, we have a very good understanding and good track of everything that's happening in town, private septic or public sewer. So we can close the gap on that one, Bill. That would be good. But also want you to know that we might be open to doing projects that it might help these people out. The only concern we have here is that it's New Hampshire, live free or die. You can bring the sewer to them, but you can't force them to connect to it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So out there, they say they're open to it, but people get used to a septic. They don't have to pay monthly fee to treat that sewer, and the town saw a lot of that with the water that the companies prior to the town taking over would extend water lines, and no one would connect to it because they want to be on a well. And now we have the opposite problem. we won't do water line extensions and people want to connect to town water. So it's like, you can't win. It's a catch-22, no matter what. I wanted you to be aware of that in case that comes up during your eval.
That's great. Yeah, thanks.
You got it.
Sarah, I was wondering what you know about the GIS data there, in particular impervious cover data. Maybe you don't, Garrison, that I don't know. But
Hi, yeah, so I'm kind of tuning in for a couple of reasons. One of which is, you know, sort of to understand how GIS is going to be used in this project. And the other thing is I've been kind of recruited to participate in a subcommittee. Jeff might, you know, be able to chime in more and describe it in a better way. It's off the heels of a project at the UNH Stormwater Center to do a priority ranking exercise of municipally owned parcels that may be the biggest contributors to phosphorus and other pollutants in watersheds. And, you know, it's all under the umbrella of MS4. And I know that they were looking at impervious in particular and what would be, you know, the most appropriate. And I want to say they settled on, you know, a product, a remote sensing layer. I want to say it was the new beta product from NOAA for land cover classification. So I'm happy to share the details of that. You probably have it. But my greater question actually is about whether or not that project that kind of happened, you know, sort of in the background and sort of came to conclusion after our agreement with the DES for this project and obviously our scope of work with you, VHB. But is there any role for that stormwater center project to inform what we're doing here on the greater watershed? You know, I'm trying to get informed so that when I go back to the subcommittee, I can better advocate for certain aspects that might, you know, assist projects that might be a little bit beyond what they had originally were thinking about when they were doing this priority ranking exercise for specifically for MS4 communities. So there's a page for that data. It's on the MS4 Stormwater Coalition's blog, and there's all sorts of data for download. It's tabular right now, even though the inputs were mostly GIS and geospatially based. And I think the committee right now is looking at next steps such that, you know, groups like this, projects like this can benefit from that analyses. Personally, I feel like, okay, well, if it's all geospatial, it really should be in a GIS format. And I think that's what DES is starting to look at is, okay, how can we take, you know, these priority ranked parcels and use GIS to identify which watershed they're in, for example, really simple stuff like that. So that's kind of a roundabout question, answer to your question about impervious. But, you know, in summary, NRPC is happy to, you know, provide anything out of our GIS that could inform the project. We maintain the parcel data for the town. We maintain their tax maps, building footprints, the planimetric data from the town, I believe is from 2017, Elvis, but you're doing a flyover this spring?
That is correct, Sarah. So we're doing the flyover, but also we're adding a task that we're going to do the pixometry, not pixometry, but you know, the impervious, the buildings, and what is that called? What is the term for that? You just said it.
Right, planimetric.
I mean, yeah. So we're going a complete redo of that. I think the last time we did was 2017. You're correct. So we actually added an additional task to this flyover to redo the entire layer. So we're doing buildings, roads, sidewalks, driveways, the entire impervious area. One that's done, I don't have a problem sharing that obviously as well, but I think what Bill is trying to get to is, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're looking to utilize this information, and obviously we're gonna have the latest one for the town to see if we can start working on creating watersheds for certain areas that we're gonna study. Is that correct? Am I getting that correct, Bill? You're trying to set up like or utilize NRPC or us or whatever to come up with watersheds for certain water bodies?
yes, I mean, we have kind of a good idea on the watershed that we have that. The resolution of the impervious cover data is critical.
Yeah,
and
we are. we're gonna do a 3-inch resolution. The flyover we're doing right now is gonna be 3 inches. It's gonna be basically the best resolution so far.
Yeah, wow, that's high resolution.
Yeah, it's, I had one of the selectmen was worried about privacy. That's how close this thing is gonna be. I said, "We're not gonna be able to see how many calories you're eating at the Celia, so don't worry." But it's pretty significant. I mean, it's at the point that you'll be able to see if you have a sewer manhole or a drainage manhole when you zoom in down. It's pretty neat, but not to the point that you can figure out if it's, if you're looking at someone's head was in a man or a woman or whatever. It's not that. It's not military grade, but it's pretty neat. And what you're going to see this, and I don't want to take too much of the time, is what we're finding out, Sarah, is that every year we do this, or every other year, we end up using the same amount of money to do this task, but for a better resolution. So what I can see the town doing is a 2-inch or 1-inch resolution eventually in a few years, because the technology gets better, but also cheaper as well. So it's kind of like the TVs. We used to buy a 30-inch TV for $1,000, and now for $1,000 you can get a 70-inch TV. Things like that. It's pretty unique, at least for the company that we utilize. And then you get a better deal if you have another municipality or community next to you is doing a flyover. So they piggyback on each other. And that's kind of what we've done in the past to try to figure out if someone else around us is doing it to get a better deal as well. But yeah, we're shooting for a 3-inch resolution, Bill. So that should be very, very helpful.
When do you expect to take, delivery of that?
So they're going to do the flyover, I think sometime next week or the following, weather pending. And it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to process everything and hand it over to us. Then it gets mapped into our system to make sure that everything matches and there's no issues with that. And then we accept the product. And then after that, we can either share it or do some kind of, come up with some kind of solution between you, us, and our consultant, GIS consultant, CDM, Jason, the guy you've been dealing with over there. So yeah, I'm hoping to be done first or second week of April with the flyover, and then I'm thinking probably sometime end of May we should have everything up and running in our system. If all goes well, depending, they got other things going on as well, but I'm hoping that's my timeline as far as the information coming in.
That's great. So Sarah, back to your point about the UNH stormwater centers, hotspot mapping, as they're calling it, right? So that is very useful. It's certainly identifies the town-owned parcels, it identifies the purpose covered, they apply loading estimates to it. The next step from that, though, is overlaying the stormwater drainage system to it, because not all of that purpose cover can be captured or it's directed to a discharge point where that's where you're able to treat it. So we have that information, Matt. So that would be the next iteration of that. Figure out where the water goes. Is there a space to do a stormwater treatment measure? And we'll be looking at that. We'll work with you in the town, when we get down into the nitty-gritty details about, is there enough right-of-way space? What's their utilities and things like that.
One thing I'll say, Bill, is that, this being a pilot program, it sure is probably one of the towns that's got at least the technology to be able to do all these tasks that you're trying to do, come up with like the best product possible, or at least a plan to, what the outcome of this will be. So I think we're in a good place for that, at least. And all these other things that are happening is just perfect timing,
Mm.
Yeah, no, it is. Doesn't always happen that way when things line up, right? So yeah, I think the next few months are, where a lot of action is going to happen, especially in the summer. like I said, we'll have pollutant loading estimates by the fall. And a preliminary sense of, what are the sources, what are the things to focus on. And then we get into more detail about the BMP matrix, float that around for review. And then flesh out more details of that, put the cost estimates to it, the implementation timeline, and then kind of wrapping up mostly, next spring, this time next year. So, Jeff, is there anything particular we need to pay attention to more closely as far as what we put into the SSPP? We're talking a lot of data here, a lot of things coming.
I mean, that's a good question. We shared that example from the other project with you the other day, and I think that's a good example. The thing to keep in mind is that you have sort of a lot of moving pieces here, and I would say that not all of them are related directly to the project that we have scoped out. That grant project that we've got going with an RPC, that 604B grant, is a relatively narrow focus.
Mm-hmm.
The SSPP should cover, only the data collection and manipulation activities that are associated with the tasks in that grant agreement. So you have a lot of other stuff going on right now that doesn't have to be in that SSPP in question, that we're talking about here. And
Yeah.
if you try to include it, it's only going to increase your costs and your level of frustration and so forth. So if I have one piece of guidance, it's just, staying narrowly focused on only the items that are included in that 604B grant agreement.
Got it. Good message. Understood. All right. Anything you guys see as, big ticket items that are areas of interest?
No, I just think maybe some people don't, if they watch this or tune in or won't know what BMP stands for, best management practices. They won't know what MS4, stormwater stuff is. If you could maybe just explain those to people that might not understand what they are.
Yeah, good point. When we say BMP, we're talking about best management practices. A lot of times that is considered thought of in terms of a structural thing, or something in the ground that treats stormwater. It can also mean non-structural things like regulation, updates and changes, education. Yeah, sure, education. Plantings, to create physical buffers. What else do you think? Sweeping, yeah. More intensive sweeping or other good housekeeping measures.
New Hampshire Lakes has a lot of information on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Lake smart living.
Yeah.
So, some other resource.
Right. Yep. Landscaping around. Yeah. Yeah. There's certainly opportunities there for sure on targeted messages regarding lawn fertilizer, septic system maintenance, things like that. Yeah. The MS4 is an EPA permit that's issued every 5 years that focuses on stormwater discharges, mostly from impervious areas that go through the town storm drain system. And so there are various measures included in that, including public education messages, which town has been doing regarding pet waste. I think there's a lawn fertilizer clipping, yard waste cleanup kind of thing. I think I just combined two, the lawn fertilizer, and the yard waste clipping. Let's see, oh, septic system. That's the other one. There's a public involvement piece, you know, with allowing public to weigh in on the development of the whole stormwater management plan, which there is a stormwater management plan for the town and the storm drain system. There's the illicit discharge detection, which is investigating the storm drain system to see if there's any illicit connections. And that's something we do with the part of this, the outfall sampling and investigation piece. There's a construction permit, construction site rate runoff control, which is mostly in Elvis's camp with doing inspections of construction development projects and the regulations, which were updated in 2019, I think, to put more stringent restrictions about development. And then
Yeah, that's when we revised. So we basically injected those changes through the planning board. So we updated all the stormwater, right? Is
Yeah.
that what you're referring to, Bill? Yeah. So
Yep.
we basically took all the rules or the template from the, what was that, EPA, and basically trying to mimic that to what would best fit the town needs, and also trying to meet the requirements as well. So that's what, that was adopted at what, April, I think, 2019, something like that. It went through the planning board, it was a hearing and all that.
So, right,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's kind of how we've been enforcing the new MS4 rules through that mechanism, through basically the planning board stormwater requirements.
There are other things, you know, outside of the MS4, like the conservation rules, the wetland regs, buffer requirements, which were all, you know, fair issues to kind of look at in this study. And then there's the good housekeeping measures, which is the town's operations of sweeping streets and cleaning catch basins and maintaining stormwater treatment practices.
They do a good job.
Yeah. In that permit, they do have attachment or not attachment about pollutant loading credits, you know, how much pollutant reduction occurs with street sweeping, catch basin cleaning. They also have pollutant load rates that we would use for this to apply to different types of land uses. So that's where we're going to get our information from, using that attachment of the EPA permit. So for residential and commercial sites and forested sites and lawn areas, they have different rates of phosphorus. So that's where we'll develop our loading estimates and look at what kind of reduction credits occur with the result of sweeping or treatment. The other harder things to quantify are loading from erosion situations. There are not very good rates, you know, loading rates for erosion conditions. I mean, there are ways to get at it, but those aren't well spelled out. We will be looking at that. Same with geese waste, pet waste. There's the issue of internal loading from bottom sediments. That we would need to take a look at too. So all of those things we factored in. So we're gonna start that SSPP first thing and then start a data collection.
Hey, Bill, that's another acronym, I guess, that we're throwing around here.
Oh, yeah.
Something coming up.
Yeah.
Is that the grant?
It's called the Site-Specific Project Plan, which is sort of a quality control plan, which spells out what data we're going to use in the analysis so that people understand at the beginning, this is the information we're going to use in the process, and then how it's being processed, and then what the expected outcomes are for this information. Things like loading rates, whatever models we're going to use, GIS data. So
Oh, that's good. So it's all of the things that are included in that grant application.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's helps.
we've seen a lot of change in activity in the lake over the years.
It's a fairly, it's only 88 acre lake or so, no.
Not really,
I don't think so, just whenever there's a gas crisis or a pandemic or something, you know, that people don't want to travel up to Winnipesaukee or College places, and so they tend to drop their big boats into little ponds, and we do notice that sometimes, but it's generally self-limiting as far as large motorboats are concerned, because it's only so many times you can go around the circle, you know? And so it's used a lot for kayaking, canoeing, fishing, and lower impact recreation, really swimming and things. We do get, you know, some tubing, water skiing and things like that, but it's generally a nice place.
generally, it's only the weekends where we see any, really a lot of any activity or a change in activity.
We did get a jet ski limitation once when the jet skis first came out, and then the jet ski manufacturers decided to develop personal watercraft, which didn't meet the jet ski requirements. So that and the snowmobiles in the winter are the biggest frustrations or things that bother us. Generally, it's a low impact, limited time period on the weekends, you know, between certain hours.
And the beach is restricted just to residents.
Residents only to the beach, yes.
I should know this, but are there bathrooms at the beach, or the restroom?
They bring in porta potties during the summer. The picnic area and walking trails over there. Carry in, carry out, which there is really, you know, no trash receptacles over there, but it's pretty good. But you know, it's, and there's not supposed to be any dogs on the beach, but we often see people running their dogs over there. And same with ATVs sometimes on the trails like on that. So
And
it's hard
it is,
to,
and it is gated too, so
but yeah, there are ways to.
individuals can get around it.
But That's hard to control, because by the time you call the police or something, they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's hard to regulate, but they do have the signs and everything to keep them off of the conservation down property.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have kind of a newbie question. I'm just the mapping person, but I wanted to have a better idea of what this BMP matrix, or sometimes we've been referring to it as a crosswalk to the MS4. I don't have any kind of visual picture of what that is. Can somebody clue me in on, is it gonna be like a table with like MS4 and watershed requirements and a bunch of checkboxes and rankings? Like what is that?
Yeah, it is a table. More or less table with the measure listed, and we make structural, non-structural, description of the measure, the stormwater BMP at a certain location. We might even put in the pollutant load reduction for that, expected pollutant load, the treated area. Cost estimate, who's responsible for installing, and kind of an expected time frame. If it's going to cost $100,000, you might think, well, it's going to take 5 years to raise the funds to do that. Then on the non-structural side, there's recommendations for increased education, or resources for education, description, timing, targeted population, things of that sort. Updates for regulations, things like that. So it could be a variety of things included in that.
So
And they
it
can-
sounds somewhat formulaic, but is there a degree of like subjective judgment or discretion that needs to be applied to that process? And is there a role for this group to weigh in? Or is it much more straightforward than that?
There's definitely a role for the group to weigh in. We would provide a draft, make it a chance to review, weigh in. I mean, the expected benefits are primarily based on literature research, what's been found before. Who's responsible is a little bit of, maybe a little subjective, but some of that is obvious, whether it's town-owned land or if it's not town-owned land, does it follow the Conservation Commission? Does it fall to, I don't know, even the Friends of the Lake, or, the Planning Commission? It's based on literature data, data that's been fleshed out elsewhere.
Hey, Bill, if I might chime in on that a little bit too. I can think of, a couple of other areas that may be important to consider as far as subjectivity go, and that not every site in the watershed is likely to make it onto the BMP matrix. At least, in my previous experience, that has been the case. There may be 1,000 sites in the watershed that could use some sort of best management practice or stormwater remediation, but you're not going to have a BMP matrix that has 1,000 items on it. It's just not, it's not really feasible or possible. So often what happens is the sites are selected to be on the BMP matrix and prioritized in their rank on the BMP matrix by, consultation with, not only based upon all the data that's available, but also in consultation with, the DPW and the Lake Association and all the folks are involved and who are stakeholders in the watershed, pointing out areas that they know are problem sites. Because, otherwise, Bill said, they're going to do, a day of investigations in the watershed. And, the 3-inch flyover aside, it's really hard to find every site that could possibly need remediation. So, there will be subjectivity in the sense that the sites that are identified is a limited universe of sites within, the entire possibility of sites in that watershed.
Yeah, good point. And to that point, we are, open for any local knowledge input, help guide this.
I would also just say that I think the matrix is also an opportunity to just coordinate as well of what's required of them as for permit as well going forward of what we're developing under this plan, but it'll also give an opportunity to say, well, these are the things that are anticipated, or these are places where it will plug in to help with permit compliance as well. That can be incorporated into matrix.
Yeah, having Dawn Kretschmer on the team also helps provide perspective to the benefits of the lake. Shouldn't overpromise here, but he has, haven't done the TMDL himself. He can provide some perspective about whatever we anticipate we can accomplish with load reductions, how much that might benefit the lake in terms of phosphorus concentrations. And we may find that, I don't know whether we get close to that target reduction that the TMDL set or not. What would it take? What's feasible? So, that would be kind of a guideline of what we're looking towards, with that TMDL set a sort of target, what is feasible to accomplish.
That TMDL stands for total
Maximum daily load, yes.
daily load of phosphorus.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
So that's what we're talking about here.
yes. And in that, they doing what we're gonna update, come up with a total load to the lake. That relationship to the in-lake phosphorus concentration, that load because of this level of in-lake concentration. I forget what it was, but mid-20 parts per billion or something. They set a goal to try to get down to a certain level. You had to reduce the load by a certain amount.
Absolutely.
I think we're good.
Or is it?
Got what you needed.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else, I guess I'd ask, that you guys feel would be useful for your final product and how you're gonna incorporate these results?
Not that I can think of at this time, but as we move along, I might think of some things. I
Yeah.
just want-
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, we have dashboards for like the catch basins and all the other things. Do you think that once these BMPs get established, do you think it's worth looking into, and we can do this on our end when we do the GIS and set up a dashboard that's dedicated to this project. So once those BMP gets identified and there's a template associated with that particular BMP, whatever that might be, education or whatever, and we set up a dashboard dedicated to this project, to how, to help us track progress related to this once this project is done. And we basically would be expected to follow this template or whatever the outcome of this pilot program is. Do you see that happening? Like, can we look into that a little bit, or at least come up with some kind of idea, and then I can have our consultants take care of that?
Yeah, definitely for your operations, yeah.
We're doing all this work, right? Which is great. We're gonna identify everything, but then I'm just thinking, like, when this is all said and done and everyone goes on their merry way, how do we actually utilize our findings and all these things we need to do? Do we create a dashboard just dedicated to this? And then our DPW guys or even the town kind of knows what we need to do and how we keep track of everything. So if, let's just say, an RPC or the state comes back 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and say, hey, we did this pilot program over there, how things are going? I don't know. We kind of stopped doing it. We left. That was it. You know what I mean? Like, how do we continue implementing that plan once we identify what, how we come up with a better product, I guess?
That's a great idea, Elvis. Yeah, I think we could work that in. I mean, it's basically taking the matrix, more or less, putting it into a dashboard.
Right. And basically I can go around and let's just say, like Jeff said, you're not going to have 1,000 BMPs, but let's just say there's 10 or 15 of them. And let's just say they're going to be swales, education for this guy over here that are adjacent to the, how do we keep track of it, or how we at least document that? We did adopt it, and we have done this every year. So the guys behind us or the girls can basically say, yep, they've been doing this for the past 3 to 5 years. I'm thinking dashboard is probably the easiest thing to do.
I guess I'm not a super MS4 expert. So I'm sort of talking out loud here, and the only word of caution I would offer is that some of the BMPs that are likely to be identified through this project are going to be outside of the control of the town.
Okay.
So I just, I want to caution you to, as far as your permit goes, not incorporate things into your permit that you're not otherwise required to do and might be outside of your control.
No, I understand, but if there's anything that gets identified and it's basically like beneficial to both, I might as well put that in my program, just like I'm doing all my catch basins.
Okay.
I'm not trying to add more than I need to. I don't like the MS4 to begin with, but don't tell that to anyone else. And actually, this is being recorded, so it's going to be out there now. Oh my God, Elvis is anti-environment. No, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not looking to do more. But what I do see is this is a government, and this goes everywhere. NRPC, you guys at the state and the town, we keep track of things we do, right? And to show the work we've done. So that's what I'm trying to get to, but I don't want to do more than I have to. Believe me. But at the same time, if we are going to identify something, it needs to be part of it one way or another. We might as well start keeping track of those things. That's all. So there's a value there, right? I don't want to, we're not going to implement 50 grand and basically just get something that's going to sit on the shelf. It's never going to be utilized. It's going to be another study. You know what I mean? That's basically never sees the day of light. That's what I'm trying to get to, Jeff.
No, absolutely. And there's tremendous value there. I mean, that is sort of one of the areas that, our traditional watershed management plans struggle a little bit, is in finding, tracking mechanisms and people who are going to keep up on those things and know what has been done and know what needs to be done. So, I mean, there's tremendous value there. I just don't want you to tie something into your permit that doesn't need to be tied.
We will not, absolutely not. But what we do is we do have a program in place that we keep track of all the catch basins, the outfalls. We have everything documented over here because I'm a little bit of a nerd myself, just like some of you over there. I can't help it. I'm trying to walk away from that life, but But I do believe in record keeping. I mean, picture says 1,000 words, records say everything. You and I are both gone. All that goes away, unfortunately, and the next guy's not gonna know where the stuff is. So this GIS/dashboard, which is basically like, it gives you, it's almost like a diary within the GIS. It allows you to see all the things you've done out there by basically it's just touching an asset on your screen, and that's it. It's an amazing thing. But we will keep it light, Jeff, just like you said. We're only going to do the things that apply to us, because I love that. Less is better. More, it's almost like we use this word over here in Hudson, less is more. I hear that all day long, and I'm a true believer in it. But yeah, no, we're on the same page. But I think, Bill, we can work something out so we can show at least that we are doing what we meant to do through this process.
I just want to have a follow-up comment on this, only because the grant with DES and NRPC, we have an obligation for match, and the scope of work was written such that that match was going to be devoted to outreach activities. And I think when we were writing that, it was, kind of the traditional public meeting, presentation, cover, check the box sort of thing. But what you're talking about to me is a lot more compelling, Elvis. So, maybe we should have a follow-up conversation about how to utilize that match activity, that effort, such that it's going to,
Yeah. And as I said, if it gets identified and there's no money to do it from your end, we do have services that I can actually, with my consultant, that I don't have a problem taking the idea of what gets identified and using my town money to do this through my program that I have here. You know what I mean? So I'm not putting pressure on you. I'm not adding more than I have to, but at the same time, I can basically identify certain things and add them to my program, which is basically record keeping for the purpose of just documentation, not even the MS4, but simply the fact that if my guys are out there doing the catch basins and cleaning detention basins, and there's 3 more things that they can do, I'll add them to the dashboard. It's not a big deal on my end. So pressure off you guys. It doesn't have to be part of this, but if we come across that and it's easy for me to do it for, I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000, I can take care of that. No worries. So you don't have to change anything on your end. But I see a benefit to this, so Sarah. I mean, if you're going to do it, and if it's going to be a matrix and it can be put on a GIS versus an Excel sheet, I think when you tie things to a map versus an Excel sheet, it's completely different. Like I personally am a very visual person. So if I can just work with a map, that would be my preference versus having a map and an Excel sheet. That's what the dashboard does, builds all that into, and it just tells everyone what was the last time it was inspected, when was the last time, who did it, what was the outcome, is there any pictures. We do this a lot on a daily operation with the water and the sewer. The water, especially every time there's a water main break. Right now, we're doing the dashboards with how we handle assets as far as like the pump stations, things like that. So we're evolving, and the more we do it, the more I see the benefit of that tying it all in. So that's where I come from. But I don't know. As I said, I'm a bit of a nerd now with this whole thing coming in. So I just feel like, I get excited. I don't know. Don't blame me. Does that make sense?
Yep. All right, so next kind of step, the SSPP. We'll communicate about your sampling date in May, I guess.
Okay.
So this will keep posted about your flyover.
I have been sending out occasional updates I have a list of residents, not all the residents, some residents have signed up for an email list that I sent out to. And so as this project moves through, I can share with them what I know, but if there are any particular updates or things that you would, that should be shared, I can facilitate that.
Yeah, and I would put out a call, any photos of things that, as things occur, would be great, like the density of geese, where they're at, or, I'm just throwing that as one example, but,
Yeah.
If there's a major rain event, you see something, those kinds of things would be helpful.
Even if they're historic too. I mean, if somebody's seen
Right.
something happening over the last 3 years and they know it happens on this week, that is really good information to have as well.
Elvis, well, maybe you could share that catch basin dashboard.
Can you say that again? You guys broke up a little bit there. I don't know if it's just how we're slowing the net over here, over there. I know someone is not paying their internet bill over here. So I'm getting a little bit of a mix of.
Maybe
Repeat that, Bill. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe you could share that catch basin dashboard at some point.
Well, yeah, if they have their lunch money, absolutely, Not gonna do it for free. No, absolutely. Sarah, how would you like to see that? Because obviously it's quite a bit and we've been keeping track of it. Do you wanna just make some time to come here, or do you want me to come over there? Or do you want us just to send you what we have through our consultant, Jason? Like, what is the best way? Like, what do you envision when you say like share? Like, do you actually want to see it? Do you want to interact with it? Do you want to get the actual data? Like, what do you have in mind?
Well, with respect to this project, it would be interesting to see, what if you're cleaning catch basins in the watershed, and sweeping roads.
Yes.
And I know you do a rotating kind of thing, so it'd be interesting to see how frequent that occurs.
Yeah.
Whether you're hitting those streets or whatever. And if the dashboard is the best way to show, I don't know, maybe it isn't, but.
Right. The sweeping is like manual, and then what we're trying to do is set up like a mechanism on the GIS so we can add to it. But as far as the catch basins, they get done once or twice a year, and basically shows to when were they first inspected and how much was done, or it shows like this is the catch basin. Joey went out there and inspected on this day. He found X, Y, and Z. There is the sump pump. There's a sump pump. I'm not a sump pump, but there was a sump, and it was half full, 3/4 full, a quarter full. It was empty. It was completely full. Things of that sort. And then that helps that out, figure out to how much sand and debris we move through the year when we do the yearly permit with you, Bill. So that's how we set it up. So if you want to see a template to how we do it, I can send that to you so you can see all the parameters that we have for every catch basin. As far as sweeping goes, I don't think we've done that from a dashboard just yet, because the guys just felt like it was too complex for them, because the field guys are the ones that filling these out. But I can talk to whoever wants about this. Yeah, I don't have a problem sharing that one way or another. Does that answer the question, Bill?
It does. I was hesitant to go deeper, but at some point it'd be nice to figure out the best way to share this online data, this GIS data. Through Jason, I don't know, Sarah, how you do it or whatever. It's an online version or what, how it works.
Too many chiefs, right? Here. I don't know.
Yeah.
I picture something very canned, like an ArcGIS online dashboard, where it's, kind of at a glance, what are your key metrics? But those dashboards really only make sense if your data is changing, right? If it's
correct, it's live, yeah.
Otherwise, it's awfully boring. So for asset management, it makes perfect sense. And I don't know what you're using for a tool, Elvis, for that.
Yeah, we're working with iWork right now. They seem to be the ones that were financially most feasible for us. There's a lot of versions out there for asset management. And we're starting with the water and the sewer. Sewer is pretty much done, water is next. But if all works out, and I think once you set it up, it's like $6,000, I think, per asset, and then 3,000 per utility after. But what we were looking to do is, if the water and the sewer works out as planned, we were going to add drainage to that. So we want to have an asset management related to that. And maybe that's how we do this. Like, I just added to my program without having to worry too much about it, Bill. So if I next year, for example, decide to put the drainage as part of my asset management, then the BMPs will be part of it. And that's when the GIS comes in play with a dashboard and the asset management program that we have. So I'm thinking the more we're talking about it, the more I'm thinking like I'll handle it my part, but I don't have a problem sharing that with you, Sarah. So at least you can see what the town is doing as far as that goes.
Yeah, that'd be good. Maybe we should just set up something after this.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm good, Bill. You can have the floor again.
I'm good. I
Yeah, I think
think we've covered everything.
All right.
we-
Well, congratulations again for getting the job. I thought you did a good job with the proposal, and well deserved. And I'm personally looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great project. It'll be interested to see what the outcome will be and how that's going to be implemented moving forward. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be good. I'm very glad that he was able to get this for us. Kudos to you, Sarah, and everyone else that worked on it. I was hoping we would get it, but I wasn't holding my breath, to be honest with you. So when I got the email from you saying you're in, I'm like, it must be Hudson, Mass or something. I was like, you got the wrong town, but no, it was us. That was good. Well, you get those. Believe it or not, we get calls once in a while. Like, this guy was looking for directions, and I'm like, I couldn't find the road. He's like, Hudson, Mass. I'm like, you called Hudson, New Hampshire. So, they crossed my mind. But no, thank you. This is really good. I am looking forward to it. I can say that, and I know that the Conservation Commission is looking forward to this as well. They see a tremendous value to this being done, especially if it doesn't come out of there. No, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm sure it's been a long time probably coming.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you all for coming today and making time to come to this meeting and discuss all these details. With that,
No, thank you.
yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead.
Jeff? Yeah, I wanted to say, Jeff, good seeing you. I don't think I met you before, but here we go, buddy. Looking forward to getting this done. It's going to be good. It's going to be a good project.
Stay Jeff.
All right, guys. Thank you again. You have a great, enjoy the weather.
Thank you all.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Later. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good.